For us, it's a daily thing.
It's every day, right?
This is Mammoth Daily
We're going to take you inside the locker room
with Mike Fulta.
We want this show to be about the fans, and we want this show to be driven by our Utah Mammoth community.
And Adrian Denny.
Fans can submit what they want to hear us talk about, what they want to hear Utah weigh in on. It's all going to be here.
Here's Mike and AD with you.
Utahns, countrymen, lend me your ears.
Right here on Mammoth Daily.
Welcome into your Thursday expert edition of Mammoth Daily. Coming up in just a little bit, we'll have Russell Brooks, Stat Man Russ. He is the brains behind our broadcast, the brains behind all the notes, the stats, the nuggets we get to. A great conversation with him coming up. But Adrian, first things first. Got to introduce ourselves. Mike Fulta, Adrian Denny here with you, your Hockey Night and Radio crew. And we're going to be calling Game 1 coming up in a couple nights against the Vegas Golden Knights after they beat the Seattle Kraken 4-1 on Wednesday evening. AD, it was looking for a while like the Mammoth were going to be playing Vegas over the last few days here. They were in control, and they got it done in their last game against the Kraken.
Yeah, Mike, scoreless first period. Seattle played hard. They hung in there. They took a 1-0 lead, and then Vegas took over, scoring the final 4 goals of the game as it was 1-1 going to the third period, and they clinched that Pacific Division Championship. They go 7-0-1 under John Tortorella since the coaching change. So Mammoth will take on Vegas. It's a win for the fans. It's drive down I-15 as you've said. It's a matchup the Mammoth have had success against. Last meeting against the Golden Knights, shut them out 4-0. Have shut them out twice in 6 games over the years. So taking 2 of 3 this year, 1-1 last year. But Mike, they've had 2-0 leads in 5 of the 6 games that they've played against Vegas. They've had 2-0 leads. So they've played with leads, and 3-2-1 overall, outscored them 9-1 in the last 2 games.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much you can extrapolate from the regular season, especially with a new coach, John Tortorella, coming in. And they did have a relatively easy, ending of the schedule, a couple games against Vancouver, Calgary, Seattle thrown in there. But still, as you said, points in 8 straight. And AD, they brought in John Tortorella for energy, to reestablish that emotion and communication. We know that compared to maybe a Pete DeBoer, certainly compared to a Bruce Cassidy, he's not as keen on making the tactical adjustments as he is in motivating his group, and he has certainly done that. And Vegas looks like the Stanley Cup contender we all thought they were going to be at the start of the season. It's been an up and down year for the Golden Knights, but they finished the regular season strong. And we have this playoff set up, Adrian, so that we get regional rivalries, and you expect to get those within the division bracket. A lot of times in that 2-3 matchup, we're lucky to get a regional rivalry in the wild card division winner matchup as well. Just about, 5.5-hour drive down I-15 to Vegas?
Yeah, and Mike, these 2 teams have seen each other in spurts, right? Not in the same division, so only playing each other 3 times over the last 2 years. Last year, all 3 meetings were in November. This year, 2 meetings were in 5 days in November, and then saw Vegas again as we started to go down the stretch in March. So it'll be fun for the fans. I know it's a matchup that Utah has embraced as a rival, and they've had success against Vegas, and it's going to be a fun series. And I think it's in the Stanley Cup playoffs, you don't wish for anything. You're right. You're not picking and choosing. You've got to win every series just the same. But with the travel up to Edmonton, and Vegas has Jack Eichel, but they don't have Connor McDavid. They've got the 2nd overall pick in the 2015 NHL entry draft. Edmonton has McDavid. Mammoth can deal with that in the 2nd round if Edmonton takes care and the Mammoth beat Vegas.
And you said it. You don't wish for anything, right? So if there's any fans out there, and as fans, we're allowed to kind of hope for different scenarios, right? But the second we get on a microphone and say, oh, wow, I'd much rather play Vegas than somebody else, that's the quickest ticket to get on a team's championship video when they're hoisting the cup and they're kind of rereading their receipts of everybody that doubted them. But you look back over the years, Adrian, there was a good article in The Athletic. I believe it was Jesse Granger who wrote it, and talked about John Tortorella and kind of his impact and where he's come in and done his work throughout his career. 10 and 11 in playoff series for John Tortorella over the course of his career. So a losing record. Only won 2 playoff series the last 10 seasons, but those were kind of some rebuilding teams, not as talented teams. One thing that is hard to ignore is how well some of these Vegas players have been playing under Tortorella. You look at Rasmus Andersson, who they acquired via trade, and Shea Theodore, their top 2 defensemen. Those guys have been way better under Torts. Mitch Marner, who the Golden Knights brought in the offseason, he's seen his production increase by like 40% in the last 8 games under Tortorella. He had been having the worst season of his career, basically. And then Torts came in, and Marner's been a whole lot better. This Vegas team, AD, 5th best power play, 7th best penalty kill. We've talked about how special teams can be the difference in the playoffs. It's going to be advantage Vegas in those departments.
And for Utah, Mike, it's the first time, and it's a Vegas team that's, pretty playoff branded. They beat the wild card team last year in Minnesota, who had the first wild card. They won the Stanley Cup in 2023. So they've got that experience. They've got that pedigree. The Mammoth going to be experiencing that for the first time. We'll see what Vegas does, in terms of goaltending. It's been Carter Hart finishing things out, signed by Vegas, eligible to play on December 1st. Aiden Hills, who they won the Stanley Cup with in 2023, and they staked themselves to him to handle the goaltending in a long-term situation after winning that. So we'll see. But Mike, just the beginning. We got our opponent. Still need the schedule, and we've got a whole lot to break down here on Mammoth Daily. There is 2 games tonight that mean something in the Western Conference, and that is LA at Calgary, and that's Anaheim at Nashville. And however those 2 games shake out will determine who gets 3rd in the Pacific and who gets the 2nd wild card. They've each got 90 points. Anaheim has the tiebreaker in that situation.
Yeah, but I think if you're Utah, obviously you're not going to have home ice advantage in this playoffs at all, unless LA or unless the 2nd wild card comes through and Utah and the 2nd wild card meet in the Western Conference Finals. But with Vegas, the Mammoth AD have played well in Vegas, and you kind of touched on it, a couple really good performances at the Fortress. Not to mention, probably going to be some Mountain Blue walking around on the Strip, I would imagine, some fans making the trip. So it'll be interesting to see. We'll get more into the matchup on tomorrow's show. Not going to get into everything now, but did want to touch on that and lead with that, because the matchup is set. For a while, we were talking about Edmonton, and then the last 10 days, basically, it shifted to Vegas. The Golden Knights controlled their destiny really ever since Torts took over, and so. It's the Golden Knights and the Mammoth, and it's going to be an outstanding series between these 2 teams. At least we hope and we think, because there have been some pretty big results one way, then another way in this series dating back to last year. Yeah,
the division tilted Saturday, Mike, when Edmonton got shut out 1-0 in LA, and Vegas went into Colorado and won 3-2 in overtime on that Jack Eichel game winner. And then on Monday, you had Vegas picking up a victory at home while Edmonton fell to Colorado in a shootout. So that's how the Pacific Division shook out, and it put Vegas in a situation on Wednesday night to be able to clinch the division. They needed any old kind of a point, Mike. So With the exception of the short time in that contest where they were trailing 1-0, they were in a position to get that point. Then they broke it open with 3 goals in the third period and took it 4-1. Mike, I know we were both watching that game. Was there a whistle in the final 7 minutes of the game? Like it was perfect for us watching in the Mountain Time Zone, a game that started at 8 and getting ready to react to it. But man, that finished fast.
I turned it on in the third, and I pulled out my computer, and I thought I was going to have some time to put together some more notes and thoughts, and all of a sudden the game was over. And so here we are, coming to you unprepared as usual with no notes. But yeah, Mammoth and the Golden Knights, it's going to start at some point this weekend. We don't have official dates yet. Those are still to come, but we'll talk about the series more, the matchup more, the storylines more on tomorrow's show and on the next couple of shows as well. AG, we have a big show for you on our Thursday show here today. We've got Russell Brooks coming up, as we said, a great conversation with him. We go a lot of different ways in this conversation. It's fun. It's informative. I think everyone's going to like it. We recorded the earlier stage of our show earlier on Wednesday. So if you're watching on YouTube, we might change outfits. We're going to talk about tonight's game against the St. Louis Blues, 5:30 puck drop, and some shout outs as well. But anything else on the matchup, AD, on Vegas before we get to the rest of the show?
Got a lot of prep to do, Mike. We've seen him, 3 times this year already, but you know us, we'll be doing some digging. We'll be doing some mining. Russell Brooks has some notes as well on this matchup that we've got coming up that I think the fans will enjoy in the way Russ looks at it analytically, a more favorable matchup for the Mammoth than Edmonton. But Russ will explain all of that, and he'll have the data to prove it.
Can't wait. Let's get to our preview of St. Louis, some shout outs. Then we'll get to Russ and our third period, looking around at some NHL awards and getting some sound from a road coach. What is this on Mammoth Daily?
This is Mammoth Daily.
So the last regular season game for the Utah Mammoth tonight against the St. Louis Blues. And first, before we talk too much more about tonight, AD, we wanted to get to our own awards. We know we're going to have some NHL awards later in the show to talk about team awards after the game tonight. But, Adrian, we made our own selection. We had people nominate who they thought was deserving of getting a couple free tickets to go to their first ever Mammoth game. And we were really impressed by a lot of submissions, but we had to choose just one.
Yeah, everybody was deserving that nominated somebody for a first time to come to a Mammoth game. So thanks everybody for participating. We'll always have more contests. Mike, I'm really bad at this because I just, want to give it to everybody. And so we had Johnny, our producer, make the hard decision. But we're really excited about our winner. Here is Casey, who is coming to the game tonight on us and Mammoth Daily.
Hi, my name is Casey, and I'd like to nominate my younger sister Carly for the first NHL game. She's never been to a game, and I just recently got her hooked on to watching the Mammoth, and she already has her new favorite player, which is Dylan Guenther. And so I just think it'd be fun for her to watch him in person and just get the feel of the barn and just the experience and stuff. I've been to 4 games this season, and I've fallen in love with the sport. I love watching the fights. I just love watching everything. So having my sister experience the same feels that I've felt will just be the best. And so, yeah, I'm nominating my sister Carly.
Well done, Casey. And good job on you coming to 4 games already and getting your sister involved as well. Casey, great job, and excited to have Carly out to the game for the first time tonight.
Yeah, so more contests always to come here on Mammoth Daily. It's a daily thing, Mike. We're going every day, so we'll keep rolling out the content. Mammoth and the St. Louis Blues coming up here tonight, Mike. It's a big fan appreciation night at the Delta Center. It's a 5:30 face-off. So take note of that. And Hockey Night in Utah on the radio will be your only local broadcast on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Mike Folta, Nick Golchek, and I will be along the way for you. And nationally, it'll be on ESPN. So game number 82 tonight at the Delta Center. And Mike, it is Fan Appreciation Night. And one of our favorite parts of Fan Appreciation Night is our awards that are handed out after the game. We'll have the All-In Award that Utah voted on. Jack McBain, Lawson Krause, Sean Dursey, Nate Schmidt, the finalists for that. We'll also have our Team MVP, 3 Stars Award, Leading Scorer, and Community Obsessed Awards. So, Mike, it'll be a fun night as always. Fan Appreciation Night at the Delta Center. And the best part, Mike, it's not a salute to the season yet because we'll have playoffs coming up next week.
Yeah, it's going to be a great night. We had the fans paint the ice Tuesday night. You were around while that was going on, AD. I ducked out. Like I said, I didn't bring my smock. I didn't bring my easel or my horsehair brush. I didn't feel prepared for paint the ice night, but a bunch of people were prepared. And so we had a bunch of really cool messages on the ice. And now, as AD said, we'll have the player awards voting after the game tonight as well. It'll be a really cool moment when the players lift their sticks and salute the crowd tonight, Adrian, because it won't be for the last time this year. It's going to be a salute where they're saying, thank you for everything you've done all season to help us give ourselves a chance to play in the postseason, the second season, the season that we all wanted to get to and the goal that was set out at the start of this year. So that's going to be a really, really special moment. But one more game, AD. There's no standings movement that can happen here for the Utah Mammoth. Mammoth are locked into wild card 1. That's right where they want to be. They're going up against the Blues team that was eliminated, was it last week, a couple days ago? And kind of right where we thought the Blues would be. We thought they'd be a competitive team. We didn't think they'd be one of the top teams of the Central Division. They were near the bottom of the league for a while, made a bit of a push there at the end of the season, but they were a tiebreaker, a tiebreaker away. How should I say this? They got in via tiebreaker last year. They needed just one more regulation win, and they got one over the Calgary Flames to make the playoffs. But this year they come up a little bit short.
Like Winnipeg, Mike, they dug themselves a hole, but they made a late run at it. And I'll tell you what, Mike, a week and a half ago, they were right in the mix there with San Jose and Nashville and LA, and Winnipeg trying to make a move. 6-3-1 in their last 10. Not a lot of shots on goal, not a lot of scoring. Robert Thomas, their leading scorer, and he's got the most points on their team with 59. Their only player with more than 50 points. But as we saw, their goaltending's pretty good. We know Jordan Binnington from Team Canada. Joel Hofer has 6 shutouts this year. The Mammoth were victim of that in November in St. Louis. Hofer's actually been their better goalie. He's got a 23-13 and 5 record. Is Utah going to go for 2 of 3 on the season series against St. Louis?
Yeah, Hofer's a really good young goalie, and it makes the goaltending situation there pretty interesting, I think, as you look ahead over the next year or two in St. Louis. Good young player, and I think is this 2 years in a row now where Joel Hofer's had the better numbers than Jordan Binnington. I know at least last year Binnington played a lot more. Hofer's played a heavier load this season. But we also heard from Andre Tourigny about a week and a half ago about how some of the best lines in the NHL are on teams that are out of the playoff race. We saw one of those lines on Tuesday. Kyle Connor, Mark Scheifele, and Gabe Vilardi, all 3 guys with over 30 goals. It's the second most productive line in the NHL. We're going to see another really good line for St. Louis tonight, and that is Dylan Holloway, Robert Thomas, and Jimmy Snuggerud. This year, they've outscored the opposition 22-5 when they're on the ice together at 5-on-5. So they've been really effective, and everybody was talking about how Robert Thomas was going to get traded at the deadline. The Mammoth were one of those suggested landing spots for Thomas, but the way he's played recently, wouldn't be surprised if the Blues want to keep him around.
Yeah, every night when you watch St. Louis, Mike, when something good happens for him, Robert Thomas is in the middle of it, whether he's scoring a goal or getting a primary assist, announced as the number one star of the game. So, yeah, he's brought a lot to that team as they've struggled along. And, Mike, we talked about their lack of offense. Their special teams have been a struggle. Power plays, 30th in the NHL, 15.5%. Penalty kills, 20th on the road. It's ranked 28th. You know, Mike, it's hard to dig out of a hole 2 years in a row. It just statistically, analytically, realistically. And St. Louis dug out of a hole last year. The 12-game winning streaks, what pushed them over the top when we weren't even talking about them as a wild card team at the Four Nations break. And man, they got another run going again. They just couldn't string together that extra win that turned into a losing streak, and so they are where they are. They're going to miss the playoffs. But I don't know if you've noticed in sports, Mike, with various teams, various leagues, you dig yourself a hole. It might happen one year, you can get out of it. Second year, you're usually not as fortunate.
No, I agree. And like, there's no team that can ever bank on having a 12-game win streak in the NHL. The Blues had lightning in a bottle last year, and they had a good push through March. But then again, some other teams had good pushes too, and there were just too many teams between them and them in the postseason. We were talking with Statman Russ. He's coming up in our second segment as our Thursday expert. And one thing I thought that's interesting that he mentioned was how games with St. Louis tend to be all or nothing for the Mammoth, whether it's it's 4 goals or more, or it's 1 goal or fewer. Remember that the Mammoth really struggled in St. Louis right after Thanksgiving, right after we learned that Clayton Keller's father had passed away. It was an emotional return to St. Louis for Clayton. But the Mammoth, I think, had 18 shots in that game and got shut out by Hofer. But back in October, Utah scored, 3 goals on 6 or 7 shots against Hofer in the first period. So it's been pretty up and down against the Blues this year.
Yeah, so that's what we got. And Mike, sometimes you get that last day of school feel on game number 82. We had it last year with Nashville on Fan Appreciation Night. Nothing in the standings was, affected with what was going to be the outcome, and we had a wild shootout. So could be in for a fun one. Mammoth obviously want to finish things off, staying close to their playoff habits and making it 7 wins in the last 9. But this is a game that it's not going to matter in the standings what happens. You want the 2 points, though. Win in front of the fans and go into the playoffs with a W.
And I think that's what the motivation probably will be tonight, Adrian, is on Fan Appreciation Night, the last game of the regular season, come out and play a good game on home ice. If this is on the road, I think it's totally different, but you're on home ice, and the last thing you want is for your coach to go off on you like Rick Bowness went off on the Columbus Blue Jackets. We will get to that coming up later in our third period. We're going to get to some league awards, some speculation around that. But that soundbite was incendiary, and it was too good not to include in this show. AD, anything else on tonight's game against St. Louis before we send it over to Russ?
Yeah, let's get to some shout-outs, Mike. We've had a lot of fun adding this element to the end of our first period. Folks, leave your comments on YouTube. We'll find them there. You can hit me and Mike up on social media at 801 Adrian Janney on Twitter, at Mike_Folta on Twitter. Let's start with this shout-out. It's from Salt City Mammoth fan. Says, great listen. I've learned to love my commute since I found your show. Well, we appreciate it. Thanks for listening. And Mike, when we were, putting Mammoth Daily together over the summer, that was our number one objective. We want to be the podcast that Mammoth Nation listens to on their way to work, as they're getting ready for work, getting to the office from 9 to 9:30 when you're having your bagel and checking the email and kind of getting settled into your Slack channel. We want to be your carpool buddies. So glad Salt City Mammoth fan found us. And I always think of Mammoth Daily. It's it was a vision and it was a passion project. And to see the fruition with comments like that, it's really, really fun for us, Mike.
I had a Merlin come up to me. I got to meet Merlin from West Valley. So Merlin, thank you. And also had, this is unique, Adrian. Carly came up, and Carly is from southern Brazil, and she came up, I believe, with her partner Tyler. I want to say Tyler. I'm sorry. I hope I'm getting that right. But I talked with Carly and Tyler a couple times throughout the night, and Carly, as big a hockey fan as she is now, she was about as big of a hockey fan as everybody else in southern Brazil is before the Mammoth and before Mammoth Daily. But she's been listening to the show. She's been learning about the game. And now I think she had a Karel Vejmelka jersey. I couldn't remember who it was, but both her and Tyler had their jerseys. They were big fans. They were sitting right next to us, a section over in section 6. And it was really cool to hear that we're reaching people who maybe didn't come from hockey culture, but now are part of our Mammoth Daily family.
Yeah, I want to throw a shout out to Mike. He stopped by on Tuesday night before the game. I got to meet Amy and Sarah. Mike,
yes,
I know two favorites of yours. They stopped by. Jackson and Emma stopped by. Mike and Naomi stopping by. Mike, Ambry, and Dallas stopped by. We're going to get to more on that coming up on our Friday free for all edition, because they had some really nice gifts for both of us. So we'll cover that up coming up on the Friday free for all. But thanks as always for everybody that stopped by to say hi. Couple more shout outs here, Mike. The Friendly Cyclist. His first name's Corey. He's one of our pilot charter members of
he signed
the
Mammoth Daily Magna Carta.
He was here on day one. He says, "Thank you, AD and Mike, for a great season. You guys have converted me to an everydayer. I truly believe the Mammoth could make the playoffs at the beginning of the season. I even made a bold prediction that we'd be in the top 3 in the Central.
Oh.
Thank goodness that didn't happen." He says, "If we play our game in the playoffs and get solid goaltending, I think we could make some noises postseason in that scenario. And the Western Conference Finals wouldn't be out of the question." He says, "The thing I like about your shows are the prospect updates. It isn't that easy to keep track of guys like T. Ginla, Cobalt Dwayne, Caleb Denoye, etc. On that front, can we have an update on Gabe Smith? He seems to be having a really productive postseason. You guys are great. Keep up the good work." Thanks a lot, Corey. Appreciate it. How about Gabe Smith? Mike playing there in Moncton with Caleb Denoye, that big body that you know is going to be there during playoff season.
Yeah, and I remember I commented under Corey's comment on this. I remember how excited the organization was about Gabe Smith back in the preseason. We saw him a couple times in the preseason. He fought once in the preseason. I think that's a guy who probably will be a Tucson Roadrunner before he's a Utah Mammoth. But there's a lot there. He's a big guy that can skate, and he's got that scoring side as well. What are his postseason numbers, AD? Do you know him off the top, or can I just hockey DB him real quick? He's got 14 points in 7 games in the postseason, 8 goals in 7 games for the Moncton Wildcats in the Quebec Maritime Junior Hockey League. So, as Corey says, yes, he's having a wonderfully productive postseason on that same team. Caleb Denoye is still having a good postseason as well. 9 points in 7 games in the playoffs for Caleb. But it's Gabe Smith who's 2 points per game and over a goal per game for the Wildcats.
How about another prospect update, Mike? How about Max Chanika, our second round pick from last year, the big D man, 19 years old, going to get things started with the Tucson Roadrunners, signing to a professional tryout agreement. That's kid Mike we saw at our camps, rookie camp, training camp. Saw him this summer right after he was drafted, but a guy that we're pretty high on.
Yeah, defensive defenseman, skates really well, Adrian. That's what stood out to me. I remember seeing him, and there wasn't a lot of info on him because he'd only played 1 year of junior hockey, didn't have really big numbers in the WHL last year, had played a little bit over in Czech, had played professionally in Czech, actually. But this year has settled in a little bit more with the Portland Winterhawks and the WHL. Still not crazy numbers, but as we said, defensive defenseman, and he moves really well, Adrian. So I remember seeing him at, I believe it was development camp, and thinking like, oh yeah, this is a player here. Like, we didn't have a lot of info on him, but this is why the scouts decided to pull the trigger on this guy.
Yep. So we'll have him the final 3 games in the AHL with the Tucson Roadrunners. Let's take another shout out here. Lo-Fi Endurance, another one of our charter members, one of our originals here on Mammoth Daily, said, "What happened to saying top of section 6-7 to come find you guys?" Good question there, Lo-Fi Endurance.
My response to Lo-Fi was that we got bullied away from saying that. Is that fair?
I guess you could say that, but I think by the time we got things all sorted out, everybody was understanding and realizing, oh, that's where they are, and we got our 1-star rating on Apple changed to a 5-star. So that was a positive by Matt. So but then I look right above and it says 6-7 Portal G, and I'm like, oh, I guess that makes sense. I've only been coming to this arena since I was 9 years old. You'd think I know the place a little
okay.
better.
You were never in the wrong. You were never in the wrong in this.
So there we go, Mike. Some good shout outs. Let's do one more here. The Dark Knight Rises says, Mike, this is good. Promise us after each playoff win, can you start Mammoth Daily with your goal calls of the game? It's a great touch. Let's go, Mammoth. I like it.
Got to talk to producer Johnny. That's above my pay grade. But
I've got an idea. I think we can do it. Got an idea.
Care to share, or are we gonna have to wait till Friday's episode to hear it?
No, I think the morning after every playoff game, we can open up with a video highlight for the fans on YouTube that has your call on it. Play of the game.
I'm good with that. I mean, our TV crew does a great job as well. Matt McConnell does a great job calling.
Absolutely.
I mean, the way he rises to every moment is incredible. I'm very jealous of that.
So good. He's so good.
Yeah, I love starting out with the highlights. Just kind of, get your feet wet a little bit, right? Remind us why we're all here.
Yeah, play of the night. And one more shout out, Mike. Chris and Cards checks in, says, I was waiting for this pod today, talking about Wednesdays after the Mammoth got the first wild card. Good game to watch after a couple of rough L's. I'm excited for the postseason. He says, I got a question for you both. What's something that you've learned from being broadcasters behind the scenes that more people should know? Also, I think for a goal-scoring song, it should be The Mob Rules by the Black Sabbath. I feel like it fits the rough, tough attitude the guys play with, and also serves to get people going in my experience. Thanks, Chris. Appreciate you checking in on Mammoth Daily.
Thanks, Chris.
What do we know, Mike? What do we know? Not much. we're just fans like you guys. We just got hired by the team, and they gave us each a headset, honestly, and then a year later a podcast. So we're just the luckiest guys ever.
Okay, here's one thing, and I learned this in the AHL because I would have to, you call the game and then you go down to the locker room and you interview guys or what have you. And I remember, I would get so worked up over wins and losses. And I remember thinking that, when we lose, I bet the whole room is silent. Nobody talks to each other. It's like a morgue in there. And when we win, I bet it's like champagne and celebration, victory music, all that stuff. And what I learned is that it's neither. You win, you go down there, and in a pro hockey locker room, most guys are in a decent mood, but pretty level. You lose, and you go down there, and guys are in a slightly less better mood, but still pretty level. And learning how pro hockey players are able to temper their emotions each and every night, that was news to me, because I thought everybody was as rattled or as excited I was after every win. And those guys definitely have that emotion in those moments, but in the immediate aftermath, once you give them that 10-minute cool down period, a lot of post games look the same.
Yeah, and especially in the NHL, Mike, when there's 82 games and
Yeah.
you're playing 48 hours later, you gotta move on. I mentioned it earlier this week. In the minor leagues, when you go Saturday to Friday without playing, it's kind of a little different if you cough up a
Right.
4-1 lead in the third period. But in the NHL, it's moving on every other night. One thing I'd say, Mike, we're so lucky as a broadcast team to get head coach Andre Turney just about every day after his morning media availability. He meets with us as a broadcast team, and the stuff that I just learned from Bear by just listening to him and Dom and Matt and Nick and Sarah, ask questions and get insight. It's so valuable. I learned so much. It makes me feel so much more at the level when something happens in a game that you don't necessarily expect to happen, or you see something, you're like, okay, that makes sense now. I totally get it. But getting Bear just about every day with our broadcast team and being able to get his insight and the who, what, where's, when, and why, that's so huge, and so grateful for that.
Yeah. Well, Chris, thanks for chiming in. Thanks for the comment, the question. But let's not keep Russell Brooks waiting anymore here. Russell Brooks is our Thursday expert, as we mentioned a little bit earlier. He is the genius behind our Slack channel that has a ton of information. There's a ton of information in there that we never get to each broadcast. But Russ is telling us everything that's going on. And again, if we sound smart, it's because of this man. Here is Russell Brooks, or as you might know him from our broadcast, Statman Russ.
Expert analysis, expert opinions.
Welcome to the beginning of the end. Mammoth Daily is now being exposed as frauds. We do almost none of our own work. Almost everything we say comes from the man that joins us now on Thursday Experts. It is Russell Brooks. You might have heard us reference him as Statman Russ. He is the brains of the operation. Russ, it's a sad day that we let everybody know that, no, we're not as smart as we seem, but it is good to finally put a face to all those interesting nuggets that we're able to provide on the broadcast. Thanks for joining us. How are you?
I'm great. I mean, I've got a face for radio, so coming on this, I was a little bit scared that I actually had to, show up in a manner where you could see me.
You look great, and you've been working with the TV folks for a long time with Matt McConnell from your days in Arizona, and we're glad to have you here in Utah. So, for those that might not know, Russ is in the Slack channel. He's feeding us nuggets all throughout the game. You're feeding us stats. A lot of the things that you'd see on Mammoth Plus come from Russ's hard work and research. So, Russ, how long have you been doing this? Like, what is your history? Give us the timeline of when you started working with Matt McConnell.
Yeah, so I'll actually predate it a little bit. Back in 2006, I became an intern for the Arizona Coyotes. And I was an intern there. And one day a statistician didn't show up that was doing on the visiting broadcast. And they said, hey, can you go over there and help them? And I had no idea what I was doing. They're like, put on this headset and talk to these people and give this information. I'm like, okay. And at the end, they gave me $100 bill. And I was like, wait a second, I'm a college guy and I just got paid for this? This is great. And so I don't remember the game or who I was working with, but I was like, cool. And then 2 weeks later, it happened again. And so I was like, cool, this is really fun. And then in 2009, Dave Strader asked if I would, the late Dave Strader, who I absolutely love, he was working with Tyson Nash on Arizona Coyotes broadcasts after Darren Pang just moved on. And he said, hey, would you want to do it with me? So I did stats for him for 3 years in Arizona. He then went and did NBCSN work on the national platform. And that's when Matt McConnell filled in, and that became Matt and Tyson for many different years. And so I was with Matt and Tyson doing Arizona Coyotes hockey for what ended up, I think it was 12 years there. His first year being the run to the Western Conference Finals for Arizona. And then I think we all know what happened with Arizona. And I was like, okay, hockey's done with. And then I got a really random call September of 2024, and it was Matt, and he goes, "Hey, we got to chat." And I was like, "Hey, what's going on? Let's catch up." He goes, "I am coming to Utah." I said, "That's amazing. Congratulations." And he goes, "Would you want to continue the work that you did with me in Arizona and do it with me in Utah?" I said, "Sure, why not?" And so that's what led to me starting with Utah.
I was going to ask a question, but Russ, you're so thorough, you answered it. I was going to ask you on your first ever night doing stats if they paid you cash out of the TV truck, because I've been there too. That's the first paid gig that I had as an intern here with the Utah Grizzlies, was putting on the headset, and they said they'll pay you $120, go down to the TV truck after the game. So I walk in, I open the door, it's full of cigarette smoke. I'm like, "Excuse me, I just did stats up for Judd and Billy." And they said, "Oh, you did a great job. We'll see you down the road." Handed me $120, and I was on my way. So great stuff.
Yeah, it was interesting because I think I've done about 650 or so games of the 2,000 plus that Matt's done. So it's like his longest relationship ever. That's our joke between us.
I, Russ, I wish that people could see the Slack channel, because as Adrian said, you are so thorough. I'm looking through some of the nuggets from our last game now. I'm looking at one here. Some things you're going back historically to get. Mammoth have 92 points this season, which is the most in a season, and 43 wins. It's the most for the Mammoth ever. Some of it's in game. 8 different players have a point tonight. 2 players with a multi-point game. You're giving us all this because our heads are swimming during a broadcast. They're also updating us on, hey, Sean Dursey left the bench. He's headed back to the room to get medical attention. What is your setup during games? How are you consuming a Mammoth game?
So this is interesting. During a game, I've got 6 different feeds. And so I've got one feed that is a real-time look at the in-arena feed. So I've got using the SMT Oasis system, I can see every player who's on the bench, who's not on the bench. I can see their ice time and who's on the ice. I can see who's touching the puck. I can see the puck zone. I can see shots on goal. I can see the shot speed of every single player who's taken a shot attempt, and I can see the goal speed of every single one. So that's my real-time feed. I can also see speed bursts. I can also see puck possession time by player. I can see longest shift of the game. I can see pretty much everything I need in that view. I then also have a real-time stats feed of everything coming in from an aggregated stats perspective. So I can see, how long a puck has been in the zone. I can see how long it's been between shots. I can see when a goal goes in, who are the assists. I can see how many saves have been made real time by Vemelka or Vanacek. I can see also a breakdown of everything that you need from an individual player perspective, from shot attempts, missed shots, block shots, shots on goal, hits taken, you name it, I can see it. That's my second feed. Any questions on that before I move on?
We're only 2 monitors in right now?
We're 2 monitors in.
Okay.
So the third monitor is I've got SCG Plus, and I am watching the game with all the viewers on a 44-second delay. So I'm not even watching the game. It's almost like a radio-only feed to me where I can hear everything that's going on, either from Mike and AD or from Matt, Dom, and Nick. So I've got the game on a 44-second delay. So think about this. Like last night, JJ Peterka scores the 4th goal of the game. I will see that once the puck is dropped to move on. I'm then seeing the goal. But I hear that JJ Peterka scored, and I've got to get it immediately to you, including the 3 or 4 notes on JJ Peterka's last goal. What's going on for a 4-goal or a 3-goal lead at that point with their 4th goal of the game. As we know, Utah's really good when they score 4 goals in a game, right? Who are the assists on the goal? All that type of stuff. So I'm kind of working in parallel where I'm not watching much of the game, but I'm trying to feed what's going on. That's my third feed. My fourth feed is the real-time stats from the NHL when it comes to their reports. So you get the main reports of the main score sheet and the individual score sheet. But then I'm looking at face-off breakdowns, shot breakdowns, time on ice breakdowns, play-by-plays. So that's my fourth feed that I have going on. My fifth feed is my Slack channel that I am feeding all this information to you. And my sixth feed is my research system. So I use primarily Sport Radar, Natural Stat Trick, and Money Puck. Between them, I'm doing all my research of like, hey, when's the last time that JJ Peterka scored a goal? Or when's the last time that Nick Schmaltz had a multi-goal game and a multi-power play goal game? When's the last time that Keller did not get a primary assist and got a secondary assist, breaking a span of 19 consecutive primary assists? Those are just some things that I fed to you guys last night that go into the Slack channel throughout the game, looking at the game against Winnipeg.
Russ, tell us how you put the game day thread together, where we've got Mammoth notes and player notes and matchup notes and opposing team notes and opposing player notes, because that's a good way to get a game day started for us.
Yeah, so every single one of my notes is about roughly 2,000 words, give or take, and it's broken down into 6 sections. So section number 1 is Utah team notes, including a recap of the last game. What happened? The second section is around Utah player notes. So I typically take about 4 to 5 players to highlight, either from the last game or they're playing well. So if we take a look at the Blues coming up, for example, we know that Clayton Keller, from Missouri, absolutely owns the Blues. We also know that him and Schmaltz have some of the best historical numbers over the last few years against the Blues. So, they'll be highlighted in the Utah player notes section. And then I'm highlighting the next section of what is Utah historically against the team that they're playing. So like they've got the Blues coming up tonight, technically tonight on Thursday. And as a part of that, they've won 4 of 7 historically against the Blues, including 2 of 3 this season, right? They've been all or nothing offense. So either they've scored 4 or more goals in every game, or they've scored 1 or fewer. And the team that typically scores first wins. There's only been 1 comeback win in the series, unlike others. So like that's just a breakdown of the Blues from that perspective. But then I start to get into some of the historicals of like Utah. So you think about like Bill Armstrong, John Ferguson, Larry Plow. They have historical ties to the Blues. You think about Logan Cooley's hat trick earlier this year. You think about Ian Cole, who was initially drafted with the franchise, I think in 2007, and played with them in their early years. Like, how do I tie that in?
Well,
Go ahead,
so
AD.
that's one of the things that's so cool, Russ, is that you're not just feeding us numbers, but there's an anecdotal element to a lot of these notes as well. Was that like, did you always have that in your arsenal, or was that something that McConnell asked for over the years? Was like, hey, give us more of like the personal story things that are available on the internet. Like, you can go find them. We just don't have them in front of us.
One of the first things I learned as a statistician is that numbers are great, but numbers without context are meaningless. So a lot of the stuff that I'm giving to you is also involving that context. So, hey, why is getting 4 goals in a game important, right? Well, they have I think it's a 26 1-0 record. I could be wrong. I think it's changed. That's 5 goals. It continually changes, but like the context is really important here because your whole job is narratives and storylines, right? And so when you have a narrative and a storyline, the number is to support that narrative and storyline. And for you, Mike, it's a little bit different. Like every broadcaster I work with on this crew has a different purpose, right? So you are different in how you do a game when you're by yourself versus how are you when you do a game with Tyson or with Nick Olchek beside you, right? You just call a game differently and how you flow between it, right? When you think about Matt McConnell, he's much different in a road game when he's got Dom or Nick by his side versus when he's doing a 3-man booth, when he's got Nick ice level and Dom next to his side. So the narrative is really important in how you're setting it up, especially for the broadcaster and how they're going to use the stat and how I think of it every single person that I use a little differently. And I can go into the other broadcasters. I have a breakdown on literally every single one of you and the whole crew. And then what's the need for every single person?
Yeah, what's the breakdown? Give us the lowdown on everybody here. This is going to be interesting.
So Matty's different in a 2-man booth versus 3-man booth, but he loves his last 5-game trends. So how much of it is scored, given up, power plays, PK. He wants a last 5-game trend, but he also wants really easy stats that tell a quick story or narrative that Dom or Nick can build on, or something that's really important to them. So he's always looking for, like, how can I set up their stories and what's important to them. Dom is really unique. He's one of the most analytical stats people I've ever worked, or analytical commentators I've ever worked with in my lifetime. And he wants to know the whys behind it. So you think sport logic, like a lot of his stuff comes from there. But a good example of like the why behind Dom is if you think about Tuesday versus Winnipeg. The first 2 periods was an absolute onslaught by the Mammoth. You could probably go back and not have to Zamboni or Zamoth one of the ends because of how much an onslaught it was. But Dom came to me and said, I want context of how they're dominating, right? So the shot attempts tell a story. The shots on goal tell a story. The offensive zone time tells a story. Drawing up the power plays tells a story of like, hey, what's going on that's really driving this forward? So that's really a big thing in Dom, and like, hey, we're breaking down the power play. What's power play 1 versus power play 2? Are they getting shots and shot attempts? What is their zone entries like? Once they win an offensive zone faceoff on the power play, how are they doing there versus if they lose it and automatically lose 25 to 30 seconds off that power play? What does that look like?
Right.
And so he loves that type of breakdown. Then if I go to Nick, so Nick's in a really like unique position because he's like a Swiss Army knife. So some games he's the color analyst next to Matt on the road. Some games he's the third analyst between the benches. Some games he's doing pre and post game coverage. Some games he's next to you, Fulta. So depending on what he's trying to do, it's like I plan on some numbers for him based on that role. And so for you, like he'll be with you tonight against the Blues, and that means there'll probably be a less need for specific numbers because he's trying to talk in like shorter bites in between the play-by-play and letting you kind of guide him with the game and the narrative. When he wants certain numbers, he loves his face-off breakdowns. He loves his defensive player numbers and how they contribute to the play. And so those are some of the things I'm looking at depending on what he's doing for the night.
Yeah, those face-off breakdowns, baby. Yeah, those are great. Sometimes, like we would have a broadcast assistant, like trying to do it by hand. Like that, there's a program with the Jazz where they have an assistant, and there's a young up and coming broadcaster that's doing what you guys were doing, sitting next to us and doing these things by hand. But a little more scientific for you, Russ. But that's an interesting breakdown and diagnosis of everybody. What is AD like? Does he have any specialties or any tastes that you've caught on to?
So AD is the most unique person I've worked with from the standpoint that he's his own stats person as a whole, right? So anything that I give AD, it's actually something that he either builds upon, like, and he'll use the stuff that I give him, right? But he is building it. One of the things I know AD loves is he loves his first 5 minutes of the game. And he loves his first 10 minutes of the game. He loves it telling a story, right? So he'll break down the first 5 minutes in his own stats, and he wants to know, like, how are they in the first 5 minutes recently versus longer term? How are they in the first 10 minutes, right? What does that story tell as a whole? So I know, like, when I'm doing especially radio or there's a good, like, first 5 minute stint or first 10 minute, I'm all over it, knowing that when he has that first hit coming out of the 10 minute timeout break and he rejoins you, like he is going to probably hit on that as a part of it.
What about you, Russ? Like thousands of games, right? You see games, results, tendencies.
Yeah.
What are your numbers that you're looking at that tell stories and signify where we're going in a game?
So I look heavily at expected goals. And so let me bring you guys back to a game that was earlier this year. I think it's useful for a lot of individuals that can remember it as one of the biggest comebacks in Utah history. It was the game at Pittsburgh, I believe December the 14th. Yep. And it was at Pittsburgh. I think it was a day game, if I remember correctly, on like a Sunday. And when you take a look at like the first 2 periods of that game, you take a look and you say, oh my God, they're getting crushed. when you take a look overall, if I remember correctly, I think the score after 2 periods was 3-0.
Yep.
But the shots told a completely different story in that game. And when you take a look at expected goals in the game, if you go back, I don't know if the Slack channel goes back that far right now. But if you go back, I said expected goals are this. You could probably see some goals here, and I don't think this game is over. And if you remember that game, you take a look and the third period starts. You get the goal from Nate Schmidt, I believe, in the first 70 seconds of it. Then Carconi follows it up with an immediate one right after. Dursey scored in the game, and you've got a 3-3 game. Then you get another goal and they take the lead. I don't remember who it is. It might have been Carconi. I might be off here. I'm sure people are watching it. It'll keep me honest.
Carconi had 2. Carconi had 2.
He had 2.
Yeah.
Okay. So then it was Carconi because he didn't get the overtime goal that game. And so you go from, let's talk about this, right? They score the first goal. Then they score a second goal within 20 seconds thereafter. It's a 3-2 game. Goals immediately. All right. So now I'm trying to figure out, all right, narrative is turned, right? Go from 3-0 to 3-2. Now, what does that look like? They score again. Dursey gets his first. Okay, so now I'm talking about Dursey numbers. But now it's a tie game, right? So now I'm bringing up biggest comebacks. Now I'm talking about, okay, when's the last time they had a 3-goal comeback? If they've ever had it, what do comebacks been look like this year? Then they get the fourth one. Now I'm starting to put the channel because you're going to tell the narrative, oh my God, what is the biggest comeback? But not only the biggest comeback in Utah history, what does it look like this season? If you remember, Pittsburgh blew a 3-goal lead the previous game.
Yes.
So now you're telling the game of, oh my God, they just had this game where they blew a 3-goal lead. They're obviously on their heels, right? Then they scored the goal to tie the game. Get into overtime. Dylan Gunther scores again in the first minute of it. And you've got this whole narrative. What a comeback. One of the biggest comeback wins. And so that's an example of turning a game on its side here. But I see it expected goals being the game should have been much different. And then trying to prepare the narrative for what that looks like.
Yeah. Do you have any numbers? And before I ask this question, I guess I'll say Adrian and I have some stats we disagree on. One of Adrian's favorite stats is the team's record when a guy scores a goal. My argument is that's dumb because everybody has a winning record when they score a goal because goals help you win. So I don't like that stat. Adrian brings it up. Are there any numbers that maybe we ask for that you're putting in the Slack channel and you're like, this is a worthless nugget right here, but here you go?
Yeah, if anyone asks me for giveaways and takeaways based off the NHL stats, that is the worst stat that they've ever collected. So inconsistent. Anyone who, and we pulled it up a couple times recently here. I hate it. And it's universally stupid across the league. But it is one of the worst stats. I don't want to touch it. One of the biggest arguments Matt McConnell and I get into is expected goals. He hates expected goals like the plague. And sometimes I'll put expected goals in just to troll him. Mid game, knowing what's going on. But that's one he disagrees on. But if you ask me for giveaways or takeaways, you'll get my blood boiling.
Russ, what do you think about the playoffs here? What under the hood numbers for the Mammoth do you think can benefit them going into a best of 7 series?
It's really interesting here because playoff prep has been very hard, right? If you're a Mammoth fan and you think about the last 2 to 3 weeks, right? You wake up every single morning, you take the Pacific Division, you put it into an Etch-a-Sketch, and then you shake it up at the end of the night because the Pacific Division standings change every single day.
That's how we
right?
get our
And
notes
so,
before you, Russ, and that's a sketch.
The question is were you good on the dials?
No.
Dang. But when you think about it, we're putting together a narrative for Edmonton. We're putting one together for Vegas. We put one together for Anaheim. We had one together for Colorado in case it became wildcard 2. Right. So we were taking a look all the time with the 4 games. Now, the nice thing is headed this as of Wednesday right now, we will have only 2 teams they could play, right? It's Vegas or Edmonton. So all the work that's done for Anaheim, Colorado, control, delete, that's gone. The team matches up better against Vegas than they do Edmonton. What the historical trend this year is, Utah has not been great in the teams that are as fast as they are. And so you think about Colorado, they're a fast team. They're not as great. Edmonton, fast team, not as great. Not to say they're bad, right? But Edmonton's just a team that, statistically with their speed is very hard. And then Utah also struggles on the PK. And Edmonton PK, they're great, right? It's hard to break down Vegas because they did something that was almost unthinkable. You take a look at your coach nearly 2 weeks before the end of the season, who is a great coach in Cassidy, and you say, peace, sayonara. And they bring in Torts. And John Tortorella is a unique cat because he doesn't care about analytics. If you actually look at The Athletic, there was a great story in The Athletic talking about how he doesn't care about analytics. And one of the things that John Tortorella actually struggles at is in-series tweaks and where he is not great when it comes to actually winning playoff series, because he doesn't care about the X's and O's as much. He cares more about, blocking shots, and cares about attitude, and cares more about work ethic. And that's how he's, coached his team over the years. And so from an analytics perspective, if you take a look right now, Utah actually aligns pretty well with Vegas, but they're a much different team. They're overperforming their expected goals. They're overperforming their both on offense and defense. They're better as a shot attempt team offensively. They're better as a shot attempt team defensively. It's all great, but the question here is, can Vegas get the goaltending? And that's where they've struggled all year. And I think Utah, in the games that they played against them this year, they've been relatively good, right? I have to get on my notes here. Give me 1 sec, but I think they've won 2 of the 3 games this year.
We're 2-1 against him. I remember that. Russ
2-1.
Note. Yeah.
Yep, 2-1 against them. +5 goal differential. Every game has been won by 3+ games or 3+ goals in the game.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think they're a better matchup. And so if I'm a fan tonight of you, but let's be honest, there's no easy playoff series here. Yeah. Like, you're going to get a tough opponent. I just probably geared more towards wanting to play Vegas first round.
Russ, we have a new segment within Thursday Expert we wanted to try with you. Is that all right?
Let's do it. I love new things.
The new segment is called Questions from Matt. So these are some questions from our good friend Matt McConnell. His first is, Russ, is it true you had chicken fingers and fries for 41 straight games as a pregame meal one year?
It was 35 games. The other 6 I mixed in a pizza. But yes, the hard thing here is that there was not a lot of good food at Gila River Arena when it was there. And so I was relegated as whatever I could find, and the chicken fingers and fries was the go-to.
Okay. Thank you, Russ. Next question from Matt here as we continue on in our new segment. What number is higher, the days in the week or the number of classes that you attended your freshman year at Arizona State?
Okay. Let me get a breakdown of this. So my first year GPA was not good.
Matt provided the stats.
Oh, I guarantee you. Because I told him it. Because we talk about our first years, him at Michigan State, me at ASU. It was not good at all. I think it was my first year was in the ones, if I remember correctly. And it was really bad. In fact, but I did not know you could withdraw from a class. So I had 2 classes that I got an F in because I didn't know you could withdraw. And so I ended up taking it again. If I withdrew, I wouldn't have had that on my first year, but learning lessons from going to university. But yeah, I went to Arizona State and I partied a little too hard my first semester and learned a couple hard lessons the hard way. And so, yes, I think it might be true that the days in the week are higher than the classes that I attended in my first semester at ASU. Got to out myself there.
Well, thank you for doing this new segment with us. I think it was a great success. Questions with Matt. Thanks, Russ.
I mean,
he gave me the instruction. I believe his quote was, "Give it to him," when he learned that you were coming on.
Yeah. Well, he knows that I've got a couple stories in my arsenal as well. So, the turnabout's fair play at times.
That's right. Hey, Mammoth Daily is a perfect grounds for the airing of any any stories you might have. So feel free to as you said, to turn about on Matt McConnell here.
Well, I mean, Matty makes fun of me for Arizona State, but he was an adjunct professor at Arizona State himself, right?
Right. Yeah.
And he, at the esteemed Walter Cronkite School of Journalism, he was a professor for the play-by-play. And so he would, host every semester, young up and coming students. But he turned me into his professional booker. So I had to give him numbers of play by play. In fact, I brought Joe Davis on as a professor or as a guest on his class. I gave other ones to him where I had to get him all the play by plays around the league to be able to get him to do his, class with him. Yeah, Joe Davis went on and did a whole interview with him for him, doing the play-by-plays of baseball and football and other ones.
Yeah. So Matt had you doing his dirty work. Not surprising.
I mean, that's what I do today. All the notes that he gets, I'm the person behind the scenes that you don't really hear from. And so it just went to his, course as is. They loved him, but the reason they loved him is all the work that I did for him. The other one is that, Utah is going to have its first outdoor game. It's going to come next year against Colorado, technically later this year, I think. I don't know, somewhere around, the end of December, early January. But do you know that Matt's already called an outdoor game?
I don't know if I knew that, actually.
So Matt, during the COVID year, when Gila River Arena was busy, would not be able to host the Arizona team calling the game. And so most games during the COVID year, they didn't travel. And so they would call the game out of Gila River Arena. So go to the arena and call the game off the Jumbotron or off, monitors there. But when the arena was busy, you can't call it, right? And so Matt and Tyson ended up calling multiple games from Chase Field. And so they would be in the broadcast booth at Chase Field, baseball stadium, calling the game, or in a shack in Chase Field, which I've got many videos and pictures of, calling a game in this little hut where they're at a table and I am sitting on the table, another table right beside them, feeding them stats real time throughout the game, and this is their outdoor game.
And it's TV, so Matt's in a suit and tie, but Russ, how many of those games was he wearing pants?
Oh, you should see the pictures. I think I need to provide this to you for the video element here.
Please.
That maybe we can overlay here and be able to show the legs up calling games and the shirts and the pants that, professional up top, but I don't know on the bottom there.
Send them over.
Oh, they'll be in the text message thread here pretty quickly.
Phenomenal, Russ. Hey, thanks for joining us on the Thursday Expert here. Game number 82. Had to bring you on and get some insight. Thanks for the insight on St. Louis tonight. That was awesome, and first round series coming up.
Well, I appreciate it. I know you guys use the term loosely if you're using expert here for me now. But I'm glad I could perform, kind of the intricates of the makings of the sausage and how things go on behind the scenes.
It's like Wizard of Oz, right? Like the projector comes down and then you see the guy behind the scenes. You are no longer behind the scenes, Russ. You are on the scene with Mammoth Daily. Thank you, my friend.
Love chatting with you guys. Have a good one.
This is Mammoth Daily.
Well, thanks again to Statman Russell Brooks for being our Thursday expert. Long interview, and it was great. Could have done another 30 minutes. His brain has to be just filled with so many hockey nuggets. I don't know how he fits through doorways.
I don't know how he keeps rolling during a game. He's typing the entire game. Like he's going as 500 things are happening and continuing to just give us great information. He's awesome.
We did want to, on this third segment, take a look around the league, AD. Now that we have our playoff field set, wanted to take a look at awards voting. Why? Because it always gets people lathered up. Couple of awards. Couple of awards aren't up for voting. The Art Ross, the Rocket Richard Trophy. The Art Ross goes to the NHL's leading point getter. The Rocket Richard Trophy goes to the leading goal scorer in the NHL. Right now, McDavid leads the league in points, and McKinnon leads the league in goals as we record this on Wednesday. But, AD, why don't we start with the Big Daddy, the Hart Memorial Trophy, which is the NHL's version of the MVP, but I'm going to read the explicit definition of the Hart Trophy for all of us. The Hart Trophy is awarded each year to the player adjudged to be the most valuable to his team. And it's selected by the media, the Writers Association. Last year, Connor Hellebuck won that award. Previously, it's been McKinnon, McDavid, Austin Matthews, McDavid again, Leon Draisaitl. We have McDavid first in points, Kucherov leading in points per game, McKinnon leading in goals. Adrian, which way would you be leaning?
I don't know, Mike. It's there with these awards, you could give it to 5 guys and not be wrong, right?
Yeah.
Macklin Celebrini, if he's not on the Sharks, they win 20 games and they don't make the playoffs. So he's, if he would have made the playoffs, probably a chance. But, McDavid, they haven't had Draisaitl in over a month, and they have a chance to win the division with a team that, Mike, has some constraints with their roster construction and salary cap at Edmonton. Kucherov, 130 points with Tampa Bay. Like, it's a guy you don't even think about because he's a machine and they're a machine. Yep. And you got McKinnon and Makar and Natchez on that powerhouse in Denver. So what do you think, man?
Well, you have your usual suspects, right? Like McDavid, Kucherov, McKinnon. You can't be wrong putting any of those guys in your top 3. But then you go to the part of the definition that says adjudged to be the most valuable to his team. You mentioned Macklin Celebrini. He's got 112 points this year. What do you think the next guy on the San Jose Sharks has scoring wise, AD?
Don't have the numbers in front of me, so just giving it off the cuff. Will Smith with 60.
So Will Smith is the second leading scorer on the San Jose Sharks with 57 points.
Okay.
Macklin Celebrini almost has twice as many points as the next closest Shark. I think if you are going strictly by the letter of the rule or the letter of how the award is written, it's really hard not to give the award to Macklin Celebrini because, as you said, if you take him off the team, the Sharks, Adrian, if Macklin Celebrini wasn't on the Sharks, they would give San Jose the first, second, and third overall picks. They would be that bad. They wouldn't even need a lottery. They would just say, take them all. I think there's some other goalies maybe to think about, like Vasilevsky's had a great year, but how about Ilya Sorokin in New York? What if he's not there? Like, is New York? They're probably another lottery team. So for those reasons, I think I have to put Celebrini in my top 3. I also think McDavid, like, we just take him for granted. And like, remember when he had 2 goals against the Mammoth? That was in late March. It was like an average night for him, and he had 2 goals. Like that's a version of greatness right there. So I think McDavid and Celebrini are probably my top 2. And then I think I go maybe McKinnon 3, and I feel bad about leaving Kucherov off.
Well, he'll get you back in the Stanley Cup final, I'm sure.
Yeah. I'll hold my breath. But that's kind of how I look at it. I think Celebrini has had too incredible of a season to be left off, and he scores half the team's goals. It's ridiculous. Let's go to the award for the best defenseman, the James Norris Memorial Trophy. And here's the definition: the defense player who demonstrates throughout the season the greatest all-around ability at the position. Also selected by the Writers Association last year, Cale Makar won the Norris. Previously, it's been Quinn Hughes, Erik Karlsson, Makar again, Adam Fox. AD, for this one, I tried to put together a top 3, but I had a hard time.
What about Zach Werenski with the Columbus Blue Jackets playing seems like 30 minutes a night in every situation and logging up the points. You got Lane Hudson in Montreal, that just a kid. Cale Makar's always there. Evan Bouchard in Edmonton has, really increased his point total, but from night to night seems like a defensive liability if he's not on his A game. But
you're anti Bouchard. You would never give the award to Bouchard. I know you, AD.
Wouldn't do it.
He does. He leads all defensemen in scoring.
You gotta
by
play D
11.
every night.
He leads all defensemen in scoring by 11 points.
Mm-hmm. I know he's increased his point total. I just there's stuff you can't unsee, Mike. There's just stuff you can't unsee when you're watching games in October, November, December, January. You just can't unsee some stuff.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And he has 71 assists. How many of those assists are there if he's not playing with the best player in the world? So factor that in too. Werenski might be my pick. So valuable to that team. I mean, you could give the Norris to Cale Makar pretty much every year. Right now, he's tied for third in NHL scoring. He did miss some time. If he had played a full 82 games, he probably would lead the league in scoring or be close. But I haven't felt Makar to be as dominant this year as I had seen in the past. Now, that's like turning the dial from 10 to 9 or 10 to 9.5. Right? Like he is still an elite player who scares the wheels off me when I see him play against the Mammoth. But I haven't seen him be as dominant as he's been. I've been really impressed. Like whenever we've played Washington, Jacob Chikrin impresses the you-know-what out of me. Leads all defensemen with 26 goals on the year. Really impressed by him and Moritz Seider as well of Detroit. He's probably maybe the best defensive defenseman of those, top 10 D in scoring.
No, I hear you. And for me, you look at the weight they carry for their team. You mentioned Bouchard with McDavid. Lane Hudson has Noah Dobson up there with him, logging a lot of minutes. Zach Werenski, for me, does it all. And we'll hear from his head coach coming up on Mammoth Daily. He might feel differently as their season has come to an end. But again, I look at these awards and I'm like, there's 5 guys you can't go wrong with.
Yeah. Well, and Quinn Hughes, right? Like if Quinn Hughes isn't on the worst team in the NHL for the first 2 months of the season, his numbers are probably through the roof too. Quinn Hughes plays almost a minute more than the next closest guy. He does play a minute more. Zach Werenski plays 26 minutes and 37 seconds a night. Quinn Hughes plays 27 minutes and 44 seconds a night. That is absolutely absurd. Now, I can't get the image of Nick Schmaltz puck-jacking Quinn Hughes and immediately setting up a Mammoth goal. I cannot get that out of my head. And for that reason, I cannot put Quinn Hughes in my top 1 or 2 spots for the Norris. But that's Mammoth bias for you right there.
You can't unsee things, Mike. There's stuff you can't unsee.
Right. Let's switch it up a little bit, get away from the players. How about the Jack Adams Award? It's the Coach of the Year in the National Hockey League. Now, this is selected by the broadcasters. Yours truly has a say in this.
Are you allowed to say? Or is it confidential?
I'm allowed to prognosticate here. Yeah.
Okay.
I think.
Can you tell us who you voted for? Is that allowed?
I haven't submitted my ballot yet.
Just like your taxes the other day, Mike.
Hey, I'm waiting until all the results come in, Adrian. I'm waiting till all the precincts report. But you look at Coach of the Year, a lot of times it goes to either the coach of a really good team or a team that's overachieved a lot. So the teams that have overachieved the most, and I'm going to go off of the preseason picks from The Athletic back in September. They ranked the teams 1 through 32. So I'm going to kind of go based off that. Anaheim is a playoff team. They were picked to finish 24th in the NHL before the season by The Athletic. Philadelphia was picked to finish 27th. They are a playoff team. Pittsburgh was picked to finish third from the bottom. They are a playoff team. Buffalo was picked to finish 19th. They won their division. And so you've got Dan Muse for Pittsburgh, Joel Quenneville for Anaheim, Rick Tocchet for Philadelphia, and Lindy Ruff with the Sabres that have all overachieved. But which are you most impressed with out of those four, AD?
If I'm looking at the team and not the head coach because I'm biased, because Lindy Ruff is he's an old school coach, right? He's been around the block. It's not a coach that I'm looking at and saying he's one of my favorite coaches. But I don't know how you go from missing the playoffs 14 straight years to winning a division championship, and they were a mess in October and November. When they lost their first 3 games of the year, it was like, oh boy, this is going to be it's going to be a disaster. And it's so interesting, Mike, because when word got around that Kevin Adams was going to be dismissed, that's when it all started. And he hadn't been, because there was, some travel and personal situations that they were waiting to have everything lined up before they made the move. But that's when the team started making the move, which is just a fascinating situation.
I think it's a great point. It's probably the best story in the NHL this season is Buffalo's rise. And you got to give the man who is pulling the strings a lot of credit. And it's not like this Buffalo roster is Colorado's roster. I mean, there's some really good players there, but I don't think anybody would have looked at that collection of talent and said that's a division-winning team, especially in the Atlantic Division. But here we are. And so credit to Lindy Ruff. I think, honestly, out of the coaches I mentioned, Adrian, and we'll get to some more coaches here in a sec, but I think Rick Tocchet has done the most with the least. I look at that Philly roster. I look at the goaltending they've had this year. Now, Dan Vladar's been great. Dan Vladar was great for them. But when he's not playing, it's been really tough this year. They've had some injuries. Guys have had their numbers dip, like Sanheim and Konechny. I believe at least Sanheim was not even close to where he was last year numbers-wise. I think Rick Tocchet in Philly has done the most with the least, and he might be my front runner for this award.
Like, coming out of the Olympic break, Mike, they were in trouble, and they lost their first game to Washington, and then they kind of got things going, but nobody was giving Philadelphia a chance to make the playoffs, and they get the third spot in the Metropolitan Division because they just kept chug-a-lug-a-lugging.
How about let's give some credit to the guys who are really good coaches on really good teams, because these guys get left out a lot. John Cooper's never won one. All he's ever done is go to the playoffs every year, win a couple of Stanley Cups. I think what's really impressive about Cooper and why he might get a Jack Adams vote for me is because there was a lot of injuries in Tampa to start the year. Remember, Vasilevsky was banged up in training camp. Kucherov missed a little bit of time. Victor Hedman missed a ton of time. And so we've seen the rise of guys like Darren Radish, but that blue line was really banged up. They had a terrible start to the year. I think they won one of their first 6 games. And they look like a Stanley Cup contender towards the middle of the season on. And so Cooper deserves a lot of credit for maintaining and kind of guiding a star-studded cast, but also getting the train back on the tracks with depth players when some of those star players got hurt.
The coaches that have the machines that just plug and play every single year, like Tampa Bay, like Colorado, like Vegas, they're never mentioned, right?
Yeah.
Jerry Sloan never won Coach of the Year with the Jazz, which is always something that struck a chord with me, right? They're winning divisions, and if they're not, they're in second place for 15 years, and you had a machine, and so it's just not noticed.
Yeah. I did want to correct myself on Philly, by the way. It was Konechny's numbers that had been down a little bit and not Sanheim. So getting my Travi mixed up. But also with Jared Bednar, like the Avalanche were dominant right away. It's an incredible roster. But they've also had depth guys that have had career seasons as well, and I don't know how much you can give a head coach credit for goaltending, but the goaltending for the Avs has been better than what it was last year when it was a mess. And I think that you have to give at least some credit to the head coach and the way the team plays in front of Mackenzie Blackwood and Scott Wedgwood.
We could take it now to the William M. Jennings Trophy, Mike, for the team that allows the fewest goals. And you've got the Colorado Avalanche there with Scott Wedgwood and Mackenzie Blackwood, who have allowed 176 goals against with the 82 games. That's just over about 2 goals a game. And Mike, 2 guys that weren't even on the team and weren't starting goaltenders when the season started last year. The Avs traded for him, gave Blackwood the 5-year deal right around Christmas, and Wedgwood caught on and got things going this year when Blackwood was hurt.
So it's the goaltender, the goaltending tandem with the lowest goals against. That's the Jennings Trophy, right?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So no doubt that it's those two right there. Because they both.
What do you call them? What do you call them, Mike? Wedgwood and Blackwood. You got a name for the duo?
This is from Connor McGahey of Colorado, the Lumberyard.
The Lumberyard. That's
good. Yeah, and it's easy to get them mixed up. I was looking it up. I was trying to figure out, like, does one guy get the trophy or do they share it?
It's a duo. Yep, it's a duo for goalies that have played at least 25 games. Both can get it if they played at least 25 games.
I know, but like, what do you get? What do you like? Is there one award? They have to like just trade it back and forth, or I was trying to figure that out, but
it says it must just go in the team trophy case.
I guess. Here's always an interesting one. AD, how about the Frank Selke Award, the best defensive forward in the league? Do you have a beat on this one at all this year? This one requires you to actually watch the game because a lot of times it's not an award you can just give off of numbers.
Nick Suzuki in Montreal is the favorite, I think. Guy's got 100 points and might be the top defensive forward in the NHL. For us, Mike, we're looking at Nick Schmaltz potentially being in the top 10 in the voting for this.
Yeah, I mean, I think there has to be a consideration. A lot of guys can get Selke votes, but he's emerged. Here's a number for you, because this is true of both Keller and Nick Schmaltz. But we know that Nick Schmaltz stepped into that center role when Logan Cooley went down. Last season with Utah, Schmaltz was minus 15. Okay, in plus minus category. This year, he is plus 19. So that's a 34 goal improvement basically in your plus minus category. And look, plus minus is not the end all be all. It gives you a little picture into how good a guy can be defensively, but that's a huge improvement right there, year over year for Nick Schmaltz. It's one of the highest improvements in the league. As of a couple weeks ago, or as of a couple days ago, Keller and Schmaltz had the 7th and 8th highest plus minus improvements in the NHL this season. And I think that's a big reason why Utah is the way, or they're in the playoffs, because Schmaltz has stepped up into that center role, playing against the top guys, playing all the hard minutes. And Adrian, he kills penalties too. That's a must if you're going to win a Selke trophy.
The Athletic has some metrics. Right now they have Schmaltz at 8th, Jack Eichel 7th, Sam Reinhart 6th, Mitch Marner 5th, Yanni Gourde 4th, Noah Cates 3, Michael Amadio 2, Nick Suzuki 1.
Michael Amadio.
Gosh, we don't have any highlights here because I guess our producer, Jonathan Schaefer, doesn't have an eye for forwards who play the best defense in the league, so no B-roll on YouTube. But, Mike, we've been watching games this year, and Nick Schmaltz will just go rip a puck away because he feels like it.
Well, like we talked about it a few times. I don't know if he still does, but we'll have to check in with our friends at SportLogic. At one point this season, he led the league in stick checks. Now, that's just one stat, but it tells you that Schmaltz is the best in the league at dislodging the puck with his stick from an opponent who's carrying the puck. Last year, guy who won the Selke, Alexander Barkov of Florida, his teammate Sam Reinhart finished second. But yeah, really happy for Nick and hope that he does indeed get a few votes and land in the top 10.
So that's the Selke Award. Utah assistant coach John Madden won a couple of those for being the strongest defenseman as a forward. That's some meat and potatoes right there. And you mentioned Keller too. And then we talk about Gunther and Cooley being strong defensively. So we'll see what the future has there. How about the
Are you just getting us right over the Lady Bing?
The Lady Bing? No, I would never do that to Lady Bing, Mike.
Does the Athletic include a projection for the Lady Bing?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't see one.
We can skip it. For those who don't know, the Lady Bing, do you have the exact wording in front of you?
I will get it. It's for the best sport, right? The guy that takes the least penalties.
It's the player adjudged. I don't know this word adjudged they keep using. The player adjudged to have exhibited the best type of sportsmanship and gentlemanly conduct combined with a high standard of playing ability. So it's kind of a catch-all award that Anze Kopitar would win all the time. And you got to be a good player. You can't take a lot of penalties. You can't, you can't get in scraps and stuff like that all the time. It's a gentlemanly player that is well respected and stays out of the box. That's basically the Lady Bing. They should change it. I wish they would change it to like the Johnny Gaudreau Memorial Award and maybe change the
right.
I forget who had that idea, but that's a great idea as opposed to Lady Bing. It sounds a little fluffy.
I totally agree, Mike. Lady Bing was the wife of a former Governor General of Canada. That's who she is. Donated the trophy.
Thank you, Miss Bing. Leading. You want to get to just points leaders here?
Yeah. Alexander Kerfoot, we talked about, nominated for the King Clancy Award for contributions to the community.
Oh, okay.
Clayton Keller for the Masterton for his contributions and pursuing and battling through adversity during the course of the season. So there's some more nominees for the Mammoth that we've covered. How about Art Ross, the leading scorer in the NHL? And we talked about all these guys with the MVP conversation, but McDavid 134 points, Nikita Kucherov 130, McKinnon 127. Looks like McDavid will lock that up.
Yeah, we got the Art Ross. Mentioned the Rocket Richard earlier as well. Right now, McKinnon's got 53 goals. He leads the he leads the NHL in goal scoring right now. Caulfield has 51, close behind him. But yeah, another Art Ross for Connor McDavid. Another 100-point season for McDavid. It'll be Art Ross number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It'll be his 6th Art Ross trophy. So no surprise there. Kucherov would have had a really good chance to win it if he hadn't missed some time. He missed, I believe, 6 or 7 games, and it is only 4 points behind McDavid. So Kucherov could have been the league scorer or the league's leading scorer, but McDavid was healthier. So there's a look at some of the awards around the NHL, AD. And as we were looking around the NHL Tuesday night, couldn't help but be struck by the Channel 4 reporting in Columbus, Ohio, where Rick Bowness, the head coach of the Blue Jackets, gave just an all-time press conference. It was so good. Usually we don't put opposing coaches into Mammoth Daily, but when we saw this from Rick Bowness, when we heard this from Rick Bowness, we had to put it in the show because this is an all-time presser.
I don't know if I'm back, but if I'm back, I'm changing this culture. These guys, they don't care. Losing is not important enough to them. It doesn't bother them. Like, how can you go out and play like that? Should have done this about a month ago. But this is why we are where we are. This is why we're at the playoffs. That kind of effort. Losing, you have to hate losing. I don't care if it's a meaningless game. I don't care. Show up and compete. 3 hits, 23 giveaways, because it got tough, because it got hard. Like we talked about after the Olympic break, it's going to get harder. So everything's good as long as it's going their way. And now it gets tough, we don't want to battle back. And that's what's happened over the last a couple weeks. That's all that's happened. We're going to change that. If I'm back, and I don't know if I'm back, Don and I will talk. We'll get to that. But man, oh man, some of those guys are so lucky the season's over and there's no practice tomorrow. Anyways, there's no more games. What else you want to know?
The what else you want to know is my favorite part of the presser, because we cut one of them out for time's sake, but he answered about 3 questions in the clip I saw, and after each one, he said, "What else you want to know?" and then just served up a delicious soundbite right after.
You know where he got my attention, Mike? With the 3 hits. 3 hits in a game? That's never seen that before. And this is a coach, Mike. This is a coach. What's the defense that the players have? They already got a coach fired in January. This is the new coach. He's done with them. It's been less than 3 months.
And it's interesting because the Blue Jackets had exit interview day Wednesday after this came out late Tuesday night, and a lot of them were disagreeing with the guy. Now it's interesting, Adrian, because Rick Bowness got the train back on the tracks for the Blue Jackets, right? They were on a tear after he was hired, and then they came up short at the very end. They ran out of gas. But man, it's a weird spot, I think, to call the team out like that, because you don't have to walk into the room the next day and face all of them, right? You kind of get the last laugh at the end of the season. And you heard him say he should have done this a month ago. He should have ripped the players a month ago. But that was pretty alarming. I saw a lot of people on Twitter that were glad that Rick Bowness did that. I saw Kirk Herbstreit, who's a part of ESPN's college football coverage. Apparently, he's a big Blue Jackets fan. He went to Ohio State. He was chiming in saying, "Freaking rights, Bones! It's about time." So a lot of people really like those comments. But I mean, you heard him. Me and Don Waddell, the GM, will talk, because Rick Bowness is the interim, does not have term on his contract after this year. Adrian, do you bring him back after that?
He did the exact same thing, Mike, in Winnipeg after the 22-23 season. They won 46 games. They lost in the first round of the playoffs to Colorado, I believe. Came back the next year. They won 52 games. Had a better year. They responded. Players like Rick, right? You know what you're getting, and he got the guys back and rallied for that season in Winnipeg, where they came back and won 52 games. So he's had success, and you look at that, but if you're a player, I don't know how you respond to it. After already getting a coach dismissed in January.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, Rick Bowness has coached a million years in the NHL. I think, is he not one of the guys with the most games on a bench? I know he's not up there with games as a head coach, but he's a longtime assistant in Arizona, then Vancouver, then Tampa, was a head coach in Dallas and Winnipeg. But he's been on an NHL bench since 1984. So he's got to be up there in terms of just games as a coach on a bench. Been doing it for a long time. And I tell you what, AD, I saw more people that liked it than didn't like it. And I was reaching out to some people that I know follow the Blue Jackets closely. And I think they were giving the sentiment that they would love to see him come back as well. So who knows? Could be a repeat of what we saw with Winnipeg, as you pointed out.
Rick Bowness, former Salt Lake Golden Eagle, Mike, 1978 to 1980, won a championship here. So Salt Laker, Rick Bowness.
And his daughter Kristen runs our community efforts and does a great job. I don't think she's had nearly as many incendiary press conferences as her dad, but Kristen does a great job running the our youth programs out of the Utah Mammoth Ice Center in Sandy. So wanted to shout her out as well.
Same work ethic, Mike. Just, blood, sweat, and tears 24/7.
Same intensity. It just comes out different ways.
She makes it happen.
But that's a fun one to end on. Mammoth and Blues going at it tonight. 5:30 puck drop. 5:30, everybody. Don't forget. Don't show up at 7. You'll have missed the first 2 periods. I have Adrian to remind me what time the game is. Get yourself a friend that does the same. But we'll have the game for you on 97.5 DKSL Sports Zone. It's a national TV game, so we'll have Nick Olczyk with us on the radio as well. And it's the last regular season game, so make sure you stick around after, and we'll get to see the player awards, the Utah Mammoth Team Awards, handed out as well. So should be a special night, AD, at the Delta Center as we get to celebrate an incredible regular season.
Can't wait, Mike. We'll see the folks for Fan Appreciation Night. Stop by Portal G. Say hi. We'll see you there.